Hi, and welcome to Pathways. I'm Micah Hanks from Asheville, North Carolina with the Lemur team, guest hosting, and this is a show dedicated to global awakening through spiritual and metaphysical principles applied. So tonight my guest is Lisa Landis, a metaphysical intuitive, and she's joining me actually from Florida. We've spent a lot of time all over the country probably together. Great to have you here, Lisa. Welcome to Pathways.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Fantastic, and I'm just as pleased to be here also. Had a wonderful drive down, so I figure we'll go ahead and just start with all the good stuff. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, I am a mystic intuitive, as you had said, and paranormal is my normal. This is just my life, how it's been. I just didn't understand how different I was from other people. I mean, I have photographs that I've been taking, giving a physical proof of, and yet they still disbelieve. And I have been giving a proof with the earth changes, with the ancient spiritual text, using them as a physical proof of understanding the way that the world is heading. You know, the earth changes are just a symbol, a sample of.
Wow, absolutely. Now, of course, you've got a multitude of wonderful photographs you've taken over the years, and a multitude of different kinds of paranormal, subjects and things. Really, I would like to know what kinds of connections there seem to be between a person who is intuitive and their ability to gather anomalies and metaphysical kinds of things, ghosts, spirits, entities, and even fairies on film.
I really don't know.
Really?
I mean, that's something that I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just been something that I've been able to do all of my life. I've always taken photographs. Some of the photographs from 1982 on 35 millimeter, I joked about taking pictures of the aliens because you could see their faces. And I just didn't know how different it was. It was just my normal, okay, there's something on the film. And it wasn't until I started, until I got out of the corporate world and started to do spiritual readings. I used the tarot as a physical proof for. And until I started going into that, that's when it became more obvious that this is what it was, that it was a spirit photography, that the orbs are like snowflakes, everyone is different. It gave us a new meaning, a new understanding of the human aspect and the spiritual aspect, understanding that we as human beings, life is going to be painful. But if we choose to live as a spiritual being and understanding that there is a power that is greater, as long as it's not us, who is that power that's greater? And when we choose to look at and understand that there is a power that's greater that works in our lives, we can use these as a physical proof of. That when we die, we don't cease to exist, but we are energy, and the energy goes on.
Right. I like that term too, physical proofs of, and I know that you mentioned tarot cards, things like that, but what other kinds of physical proofs might people be able to look for in the environment or in their lives around them? Or can they be looked for? Can they be seen?
It's like, this is a picture of my first physical contact with it.
Now, what is this that we're seeing in the photograph here?
Okay, well, we'll start out. This was the, we've got that on there. This was the cemetery that I was at, and I had seen a dark shadow earlier. Some of us see things. Some of us choose to deny that we see things because we are afraid that other people will call us crazy. I've had quite a few people who had come to me saying that they do talk to their deceased loved ones and that they do answer them, but they don't tell anybody because they're afraid that somebody's going to call them crazy. But this is my first physical contact with it. When I was taking pictures of the cemetery, there was something around my face, and I'm going like this, ooh, big mosquito, big mosquito. So it's like, okay, I'm leaving. I went down, and it's like, okay, let me get a picture of it from the backside. So that I turned around, and it was like, bam, just like bumping into you.
There it is.
It was like, bam.
Now, of course, off camera, I'd asked about that, and you said that you encountered this entity, and you had literally bumped into this.
Yeah.
What was the sensation that you felt bumping
just
into?
Bam, just like you.
Wow.
Just like bumping into another person.
Unbelievable. And you were able to actually photograph this entity, and that's what we're seeing in the photograph.
Right.
There.
That's what this is. That's the photograph of bumping into it.
Wow.
I had my camera up here, and that when I had bumped into it, it was like bam.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a surprise.
That's amazing. Lisa, being an intuitive as well as a spirit photographer, have you always been able to photograph these kinds of anomalies? I'll refer to them as anomalies, but actually, what would you call these very things? I mean, they're very different from photo to photo. Exactly what are we seeing in these photos, and what would you call them?
It's an energy. It's an energy matter. There again, we have different kinds of. Whereas these, I do feel, are more of an angelic life source. Here's one where the spirit is leaving the deer, where my husband had shot it. He's a hunter. My family are hunters, and it's game. We use it to eat, and very good. But that was the spirit. That was a 35 millimeter. These are just cropped and blown up. This was from 1982, and I had joked about taking pictures of the aliens, and then cropped and blown up. You can see the faces inside in them. And then there were two photographs, and then this is the second photograph where it had started to leave, and then over here there is just a single spirit orb. Spirit orbs are energy and matter. Okay, can we see the faces in there? The two faces, one here, one here. Oh, yeah, there you
kind
go.
of point those out. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now we're gonna crop them and blow them up again, even bigger. Can we get those faces in there? There we go. Okay. Now let me put this. Oops, sorry. There we go. How's that? Can you recognize the expression? I was pregnant.
The open mouth, right?
I was pregnant with him when this photo was taken, and all of his life, his favorite thing to draw were skulls. I used to think something was wrong with him.
The other image there does look very similar to a skull. So now these photos you said were taken in 1982.
1982, taken with a 35 millimeter. They were developed in January of 1982.
So I suppose that in terms of how long you've been doing spirit photography, it has been quite
all my
a while.
life. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is
Oh,
fantastic
and interesting, this, my son, to show you that there are different. These are two photographs, and oops, here you want this one first.
Now, what are we seeing here?
Okay, now these are entities. This is when we were on the beach in Daytona to watch the. There we go. Can you see the entities that are attached to them? We were watching the space shuttle go off. So there are good and there are evil. And the entities, the negative type, are more of a linear. That's what I have found in my understanding of.
Absolutely. And so you tend to photograph all these different kinds of...
all different kinds.
And you never really know, I guess, which is going to show up where and in what photographs?
No.
Okay.
No. It's like a... click, 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 and then you go home and you download them on your computer, and then it's like, ooh.
Right, you never know what you're going to find.
No.
Well, I guess with the spontaneity of the different kinds of things that you'll see in photographs, even outside photography, as a mystic intuitive, how has your ability and your extrasensory perception kind of governed where your life has taken you?
I used to live in accordance with other people's will and wishes in my life, what they thought I should be. I used to try to be who they wanted me to be. And I have found that genius hinges on insanity only when you're not true to yourself. So now it's like I have to be true to me. I'd rather be happy than right. I would rather be happy knowing that I am right rather than arguing that I'm right. I can be happy. Hey, you're right.
Right. So,
but I have physical proof of something else. And when you understand, when you have physical proof, when you have something bump into you, you have no doubt.
Right, exactly. But now what about the skeptics that will come up and say, Lisa Landis, you claim to be a psychic. We can't see these things, our friends can't see these things. You've got photographs. They may even try to say the photographs show something else. How do you react when folks meet you with opposition?
I'd rather be happy. I know. I have no doubt in my life with what I'm doing. And I have a God, I have a power that's greater who I choose not to define, but I can see that divine that works in my life. When I had channeled Katrina and I tried to prevent it and nobody would listen, it really freaked me out. And I had ended up going up to North Carolina, up to Cherokee, because it freaked me. When you channel, you feel the energy. I felt the people, and it was horrible. It was a horrible. So I had gone up, and these are my angels. There's one. Where we go? Right there. That was up in Cherokee. It was a 100-foot waterfall, and you had to walk a quarter mile up the side of a mountain to get to it. And I had a cell phone for a flashlight. and it was, no fear. People were killing themselves. Here we go. It's like, take me or give me strength. And having a talk with my God, and it's like, why do you give me these gifts if I can't use them to save people's lives?
Right.
And that's when I understood that out of tragedy comes love.
Right.
And when we look and we study all of the ancient spiritual texts, we understand that we are in Revelations. Revelations is to reveal. There are many things that are said, and one of them is the dead in Christ shall rise first. So we do see more and more paranormal today.
Right. Now, speaking of revelations, later in this segment, I'd like to get with you about some possible predictions for 2007. But before we hit that, I understand that you actually have a history of interest in kind of offbeat things in your family. You'd mentioned your grandfather earlier.
Yeah, my grandfather, I'm like, oh, do I have that picture too?
Yeah.
My grandfather, he was a magician. And that is what I remember more about my grandfather. Was that he was a magician, and he would play with balls, and he was cool. He died when I was 6, so I don't remember a whole lot. But in doing research later on him, I found out that he had worked on the Manhattan Project, and in doing research, he didn't have a Z number, and everyone who worked on the Manhattan Project had a Z number.
They were assigned this number, right, by government agencies?
Right.
Right.
But
he didn't have one.
He didn't have one. The only information that they could find was that he, proving that he did work there was an index card with his name and the initials UC.
Which stands for?
Undercover.
Wow, that's fascinating. So here you are decades later, and of course you're, I guess, not maybe studying scientific, breakthroughs and things quite like the Manhattan Project, but still kind of, I guess, offbeat for your time. And how do you feel about that, being labeled offbeat?
Well, I foresee future events, like with, not just with Katrina, but also glow-in-the-dark clothing. I invented glow-in-the-dark clothing.
Oh, wow.
I didn't understand that was, foresight. But then also contacting the World Trade Center about the importance of glow-in-the-dark escape route systems. And I had contacted them. A competitor had installed one, but that's one of the things that they credit with saving so many lives.
Right.
So we have a chance. Okay, predictions of premonitions are dependent upon the information at the time of the interpretation, which means that we have an opportunity to change the future if we choose to see it as such.
Wow, I'll tell you, that's a mouthful. I admire anyone who can put that out there like that. So getting to you've obviously you predicted lots of catastrophic events. I mean, had you had foresight prior to 9/11?
Well, going and saying, hey, you need this product in your building, I could say that would be a foresight.
And of course, on many occasions previous to this, you've also mentioned Katrina specifically.
Yeah, Katrina, and also New York isn't done yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I did, going back to, yes, I did, not just going there, but after that I had also had a dream of 2 planes, and I knew, and it was funny because when that had happened, everybody is freaking, nobody really knows what's going on, and I'm bringing a girl from Florida to go to court up in North Carolina, and it's like, yeah, it's okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew that it was okay, but everybody's like, "What are you doing? We don't know what's going on. Why are you driving?"
Everyone was grounded
Everybody
at that
was
time.
freaking watching the news, and I catch it, on the drive up. But I had already promised her we were going to go take her to court.
So here you are on the travel.
Yeah.
On the road.
Yeah.
And of course, traveling seems to be a way of life for you also.
It is.
And you've used the term before, living divine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Living by divine. I am constantly put in people's lives. I don't question anymore. It's like living, touched by an angel. I'm constantly put into people's lives to touch them. And I've learned that it doesn't cost anything to give away a smile. And how many people would you save their life if you were to smile and they thought that someone cared.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of touching lives and saving lives, maybe we could talk a little bit about world events of 2007. The producers of this program had asked me to bring along a very good psychic who could talk a little bit about perhaps things to come in 2007. And a lot of the time, I guess it's easy to kind of focus on gloom and doom. So there may be some of that. Maybe there'll be some positive things also. I'd like to give the floor to you and give us an idea of maybe what to look for this year.
Okay, this year, how do you choose to see it? Yes, I do foresee a continuation of catastrophic events. Getting a proof of. You have your scientific proof of NASA. NASA has predicted the solar cycle 24 to be 50% greater than, worse than cycle 23, which we're coming out of. We are now at the bottom of a big that's going to be getting even worse. Solar cycle are the solar flares that are set off from the sun that affects the Earth's magnetic field. I mean, we can't turn on the TV nowadays without seeing somewhere in the world that there is a catastrophic event that's going on that's due to the Earth.
Sure.
Last year, and working as a psychic medium, I like to tape, so I do have a physical
Keep
proof,
a record, right?
Physical proof of. That's so important. And I had said about, the whole west coast of the United States, the central and the northeast. And I told a woman up in Canada to get flood insurance because the hurricanes were going to affect her. And she, a lot of people, yeah, right, Lisa, right, Lisa. And it's like, yeah, well, they got a hurricane this past year. So, Florida, it's not looking good. It's going to continue. Where do you go? There's not going to be very many places to go in order to be so-called safe. But when you understand that, it's a cycle, it's nothing new. Earth changes are nothing new. They've happened since the beginning of time. And it's going with the flow, not to fear. It's understanding that the Earth is a living, breathing organism. Right. You can call it global warming. You can call it greed. You can see where the greed and corruption come before the downfall of civilization. You look at the past. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right, and of course we study the past to learn about the future, and here we are learning about the future. Ladies and gentlemen, take notes. Learning a lot from Lisa here. Global events, so far as the actual weather changes and things like that, sounds like it could be pretty intimidating for 2007. What about politically in 2007? What kinds of impressions do you get, Lisa? Take your time.
Well,
gotta let the energy flow here.
Because I'm like, well, let's put it to at this point in time, if things continue on the path that they are, if nothing changes, nothing changes. I do not see a presidential election in 2008. I see mass evacuations, mass migrations of people in 2008. If there is this coming into play, what is to stop the president from declaring martial law? I don't know how much I'm allowed to say about the re-education camps. You can Google who built them, who got the contract to build them. There's a whole lot of things on another realm if you choose to see it. And a lot of people get uncomfortable when I talk like that, and it's like, how do you choose to see it?
Right.
If nothing changes, nothing changes. Until we learn to hold our government accountable, responsible, we want the information for a lot of things that are covered up. I didn't tell you I was nuked at 3 Mile Island. The 3 Mile Island nuclear accident?
Right.
Yeah, that was my first indication in dealing with the government and their cover-ups.
So now, Holly, you say you were nuked.
I was exposed to radiation at the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident. I lived 3 miles. The TV show Real People had come in and filmed us, and they didn't air it. They were afraid of a lawsuit.
Wow.
The whole attic, you look around the room, and it's like, imagine taking one step and not stepping. You could not take one step without stepping on a fly. All the flies died, and it's like, why did, I grew up in the country, the flies just don't drop over dead, and that's what had happened.
Well, that's frightening, and you read maybe everyone doesn't actually read the comic books, but I certainly grew up reading comic books, and you hear about characters like the X-Men and things like that.
Yeah.
Could you possibly liken maybe some of your abilities to experiences like that?
You want to shoot some pool?
I don't know. I think you probably know if you'd win or not.
Well, it's funny because I've done it, not really understanding understanding what exactly I'm doing.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, I try not to use it to an extent, but you know, it's like the 8 ball. If somebody's up and they get the 8 ball before, or they're working on the 8 ball, it's like, off the side, off the side, off the side. Yeah. So.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating. And so we've touched on with the world changes. You know, we've talked about ecology, we've talked about politics. Now, what about 2007 so far as, you know, our personal lives? I mean, where can Americans expect to be in 2007 if you can take that in a direction that's non-political?
Okay.
And you don't have to do just Americans, maybe citizens of the world.
Well, people of the world do look at Americans. Americans are on the forefront. The tornadoes that we just had down in Florida, 3 of the places that were hit are 3 of my past residences.
Wow.
And it hit a mile from where I live now. I had warned my friends that, you know, 2007 is going to be too late to get out of. When you understand the people coming together in love after the tragedy, you see why there is a need for it. Because if we continue on, Rome, I mean, look at all of your great civilizations that have been destroyed because of the greed and the corruption. When we go through this, there was such an outpouring of people who came to help. But then at the same time, where you have one hand giving, you have someone else coming in and stealing, which was sad.
Right.
You know, because, excuse me, before my friends had their things, you know, secured, someone had come in and stolen, and it's like, dang, you guys don't get it.
Even in the face of natural disaster.
Right. Well, you look at Katrina.
Oh, yes.
And there again, nobody knew who was the leader. Brian Williams, NBC Nightly News. When I was in the corporate world, I was CEO of Glow and Safety, Glow in the Dark Escape Route, you know, safety products, and I had the opportunity to give Brian Williams one of my glow in the dark discs. And I often wonder if he took that to the dome, you know, to the New Orleans Superdome. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we've talked about psychic, you know, phenomenon and of course, your photographs. And we may touch on those a little bit more before we run out of time. But briefly, I do want to ask you about your glow-in-the-dark apparatus that you've created in the past. Tell us just a little bit about that, since you are known as the Glolady.
Yeah, it's like, which one?
Right.
Yeah, I formulated a dye fabric to glow in the dark. Glow Butts, the original glow in the dark underwear. Glow For It, glow in the dark originals. My glow and safety, glow in the dark escape route systems. They are color coded, simple yet specific. But there's a big war out there in the corporate world. It's all about the greed. You know, the New York implemented new codes and standards requiring all high-rise office buildings to retrofit. So you're talking billions.
Wow.
You're talking billions, and it's all about the money. You know, it's all about the money. I see a way in which to revolutionize the economy in the United States and use the money to put back into healing society. But people don't want to heal society because our, you know, financial profits are on. I mean, I could keep going on and on and on.
Sure.
It's like you look at the criminal justice system. You know, why do we have so many in? Because there's a lot of sick people. Well, why do we have sick people? Because of the disease within, dis-ease within. They aren't comfortable with them. You know, you're not normal. You're not normal. You're not good enough. You know, and we listen to the outside. Genius hinges on insanity only when we're not true to ourselves. So when we don't march to the beat of our own drum, when we listen to others, that's where that insanity comes in.
Very eloquently put. Fantastic. So now your glow-in-the-dark safety and escape systems, are those actually being utilized in places around the country?
Not mine per se. I got out of the corporate. I got out of the corporate greed and the corruption. It's like when I went around trying to get money for, you know, to find backers to back this, you know, I mean, come on, there's $1 billion, you know, I didn't know how psychic I was then,
Certainly.
but, you know, not understanding. But when I went around trying to, you know, get financiers, investors, the big question was how much money is in it for me? And it's like, there's a lot of money in it for you. What are you talking about? My purpose is, you know, to heal society, to put the money back into a nonprofit organization. Corporate couldn't understand why I wanted to put it back into a nonprofit. So it's like, you know, I'd rather be happy than right. You know, money, what's money? You know,
Right.
it's a monetary.
Even if happiness doesn't make you a good business person, right?
Wealth isn't monetary. That's it.
Well, you seem to be doing okay thus far.
Yeah, well, I thoroughly enjoy what I do,
Mm-hmm.
and I help people one at a time.
Absolutely. Well, that
Yeah.
kind of ties in, I guess, as we're bringing things down here. Pathways seems to be a program that deals a lot with, what can be helpful to people at large. So I would like to know personally, how has your experience with the unexplained and the paranormal realm kind of heightened your own spiritual awareness?
I grew up a good little Christian girl, and I was taught judgments that I was better than. Especially those Catholics. Don't you dare bring home a Catholic boy. And I didn't know. And that's the thing. We don't know what we don't know until we're taught. And sometimes what we're taught isn't correct. And most of us don't look into and research other. We only listen to what we were taught. And that is what we were taught. That is what we believe. I am a recovered alcoholic, and one of the things in the 12-step program is to find a God of your own understanding. And who is that? What is that? And then somebody told me I was a practicing pagan, and I'm I'm a good little Christian girl. What do you mean? And it was the ignorance, my ignorance. I didn't know what that meant, which the same as a lot of people. They don't know, and they don't research to find out what exactly that is. Mm-hmm. Why did the wise men bring frankincense and myrrh to the Christ child?
Right, and there's probably still people wondering. So.
Oh, frankincense and myrrh are two fantastic herbs,
Yeah.
or shall I say resins, and fabulous incense. Mm-hmm. They're great for calming. They're really good for medicinal purposes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just ask a witch if you want to know.
That's fantastic. And so also, what advice could you give to the viewers about spiritual awareness and how to heighten theirs?
Be true to you. Listen to your gut. Your gut is your God unto thee. When you go with your gut, you listen to your gut. If you listen to other people, fill your head with their thoughts and their beliefs, and it goes against your gut, then your heart is the mediator, and that is where your heartbreak occurs. Mm-hmm. Your head is out to kill you, and you can't fight the enemy when they have an outpost in your head.
Wow.
So when you line them all up, that's when you're happy. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And finding happiness really seems to be the key.
That is.
How can our viewers learn more about you and your work?
Glolady, GLOLADY.com, on MySpace, The Glolady. Mm-hmm. I am under constant attack with who wants to shut my mouth up? I don't know. But that is the easiest way because I'm traveling, and if you want to know, that's, search, Google Glolady.
Google Glolady.
Google Glolady.
Pretty easy to remember.
Yeah.
Where are you going to be next? Where are you going next?
Oh, where am I going next? Let's see. Back and forth and back and forth. I'm going back down to Florida, and then I'm going to be moving somewhere up around the mountains. Mm-hmm. I will be led to where I am to go, mm-hmm. and that's just how I choose to live. I enjoy that.
Excellent. And I think this has probably been one of the most enlightening 30 minutes of my life. I appreciate you so much joining us this evening, Lisa. And of course, it's been fantastic here on Pathways. So who knows, maybe in the future, we'll see how these 2007 events unroll, and perhaps we'll be here again sometime.
I hope.
Thank you for joining us here. And of course, for Pathways, filling in right live from Asheville, North Carolina, I'm Micah Hanks from the Lemur team, coming down here to do Pathways with you. We really enjoyed it, and of course, we'll see you next Friday.